Hey guys. How are you doing? Please don't forget to turn your cameras on before we start the class. Okay. Anyways, today we'll be looking at a new section. We'll start with the writing section now that we're done with the speaking. So the writing section, you'll see that it's very similar to the speaking section, okay? Now, as for the questions, in the writing, you will have two questions, okay? The first one is going to be the integrated question that we're going to be working on today. And the second, we'll leave it for next class, which will be the independent question, okay? So let's start today with the first task of the writing section, which is the integrated task. Let's see. So what will you have to do for this integrated writing? It's pretty simple, pretty similar to what you had in the integrated questions of the speaking. The first thing that you guys will have to do is read a passage. You will have 3 minutes to read a short passage, an article. And in this article, I want to say that the author of the article will have an opinion, okay? So you have the author's opinion here in the reading. You have to read the article, identify some elements, you have 3 minutes, and that's it. Then you have to listen to a university lecture. So you will have to listen to this lecture where the professor will also have another opinion. So the professor is pretty much gonna object every single thing that the author said. So you will have the professor's opinion, which is the opposite of the reading. Okay? So you will listen to this lecture for a while, and that's it as well. You have to take notes, by the way, when you listen. And after that, you will just have to summarize both. You will have to write an essay in which you summarize both the reading and the lecture, okay? You will have 20 minutes exactly to write this essay. So 20 minutes to write the essay. To summarize, you read a passage for 3 minutes, to a lecture, and then you have to write an essay summarizing them for 20 minutes. Any questions so far? No? Then without further ado, why don't we start right away with an example? Then I'll give you some tips as we go. We'll talk about some things. But let's start with the structure, okay? Because that's the most important part. Let's see. Okay. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna also send you a link so that you can read the article on your own as well. Yeah, it's a shared docs that I'm gonna be sending you. So you can have access to it on your own as well.
Teacher, I have a question.
I'm sorry I left the session. Taking my... Okay, guys. Well, anyways, I think we'll have to do it from here. So you guys will have 3 minutes to read this essay. I'm sorry, to read this article. Okay, you can start reading the article now. You'll have 3 minutes. Sorry, guys. Did you finish reading? Did you?
Teacher, I have a question.
Yes, tell me.
The reading is won't disappear in
No.
the exam. Yes.
Yes, you're right. The reading will be on your screen even when you're typing your essay.
Okay.
Any other question? Did you guys finish reading? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So the first thing is, remember that I said that this is an argumentative text, right? So that means that the author, the person who wrote this, actually has an opinion and is trying to convince the audience of that opinion. So can anyone tell me, before going into that opinion, what is the topic of this article? First of all, what is the topic? What is it about?
Autonomous cars.
Okay, perfect. You're totally right. It is about autonomous cars. Now that you know the topic, can anyone tell me what the opinion of the author about the topic is? What is the author's opinion here?
The author is in favor about this kind of cars.
Great, the author's in favor. author thinks that they are a positive thing. Now, where did you find that? Where did you realize, oh, okay, that's what the author thinks? In which paragraph did you find the author's opinion?
Second, he says that there are less accidents with this kind of cars.
Okay. Is that the opinion though, that there are less accidents? Is that the main opinion that the author has? You sure? I think it might be in the first one, right? When the author says such vehicles will have a positive impact on our driving experience. Wouldn't you say? Yeah, right? Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is, the structure of these articles is always going to be the same. In the first paragraph, you might have noticed that is an introduction, okay? So the first paragraph is always going to be the introduction. And in the introduction, you will have two things. The first one is going to be, you will know in the introduction what the topic is, okay? And the second thing that we talked about is the author's opinion. Those are the two things that you will find in the introduction, okay? The topic and the author's opinion. Now, what comes later? After the introduction, you have what is called the body of the article, okay? This whole thing is the body. The three paragraphs that you have after are the body. So, can anyone tell me what we have there? What do you guys think we have in the body?
Maybe arguments.
Exactly. We have arguments that support the author's opinion. You're totally right. So the thing is, in the three later paragraphs, which are the body paragraphs, you will always have three arguments. Or if we want to make it simpler, we can say three reasons, okay? So in the first body paragraph, we have the first reason. In the second body paragraph, we have the second reason. And in the third, we have the third reason. Okay, and these three reasons are supporting the author's opinion. And that is exactly how everything will be in this article, okay? Every single article that you read for the integrated task will be like this. You'll have 4 paragraphs. The first is the intro, you have the opinion and the topic. In the second, you have the first reason, in the third, the second, and in the fourth, the third reason, okay? So what is the first reason anyways? What is that first reason that we have here?
Not capable of making mistakes.
Okay, yes, the cars are not capable of making mistakes, which means there's one keyword here.
Are
No
safer.
accidents.
Exactly, that they are safer, right? That's the key idea. Why are they safer? Because they don't make mistakes, because they cause less accidents and so on. But the main point, the main reason is that they are safer, right? Why will they have a positive impact? First, because they are safer than other cars. Okay, that is the first reason. What about the second reason? What's the second reason that the author gives?
They are good for the environment.
Great, they're good for the environment. That's the second reason. And what about the third, the final reason?
Give passengers time.
Great, they will give passengers time. Those are the three reasons that you have. And now everything makes sense, right? The author thinks that these cars will be good because of three reasons. They are safer, they're good for the environment, and they give us time. So when you read, you guys have to identify those elements, but you don't have to memorize them, or you don't have to, you can take notes, okay? In fact, I would suggest that you guys take notes. I think that 3 minutes is enough to read and take notes, but your notes are not gonna be so extensive, okay? You should have about 4 words, I'd say, or 5 words in your notes. But you don't have to memorize it because as Carol was asking, you will have access to the article all throughout your response. It will be on your screen, so you don't have to memorize. Okay? So maybe in our notes, we're gonna write down a couple of words. We're gonna say the opinion or the claim is gonna be that driverless cars will have a positive impact. Okay, I'm just gonna do this. The first reason is because they're safer. The second, the environment. And the third, time. And that's it. That's all you need for your notes. So any questions about what you have to do when you're reading the article? No questions? Okay. So what is the next thing that you will have to do after reading the article? You will?
Hear the lecture.
Exactly. You listen to a lecture and the professor, the speaker of the lecture, is always gonna oppose whatever the reading said. So you already know what to expect. The structure will be exactly the same. For everything that the reading says, you will have the opposite in the lecture. So for example, in the introduction, you had the opinion, right? So you will also have an introduction in the lecture, and the professor will say the opposite. If the reading says that these cars will be a good thing, the professor will say that that's not right. They won't be a good thing. If the reading says something about safety, the professor will argue that. So we'll object that safety point. If the reading says something about the environment, the same thing. The professor will also talk about the environment. And the professor will also talk about time as well. So understanding the reading is key to then understanding the lecture, because you become an active listener. You know what to look for, right? The questions that need to be on your mind right now are, first, what is the professor's opinion about these driverless cars? Second, what does the professor think about the safety of these cars? What does the professor say about the impact of these cars on the environment? And what does the professor think of the time that these cars will give us? So those questions are the ones that you need to, the answers to those questions are the ones that you need to look for when you're listening, okay? Now, unlike the article, you will only have access to the lecture once. So you will only listen to it once, okay? That means that this time you do have to take notes. You do need to pay attention and have more information on your notes, okay? They should be more complete here. So now we're gonna do that. Please listen to the lecture, take notes, and I'm gonna ask you the same questions that I just did, okay? And we're gonna discuss what we had in the lecture. So please take notes. This is the lecture.
Now listen. Of a lecture on the same topic you just read about. A lot of people are very excited about driverless cars, but most of the media attention and praise ignores the problems with driverless cars. The author seems to believe that autonomous cars will cure all of our driving troubles, when nothing could be further from the truth. Take the idea that driverless cars will be safer. Remember, all computer software is designed by humans, so any type of automatic guidance system within driverless cars will be prone to error. For example, the driverless car mentioned by the author, the one that drove over 700,000 miles without an accident, actually hit another car just last month. It was all over the news because it makes everyone doubt just how safe driverless cars actually are. And what about the idea that driverless cars will reduce pollution? Well, some studies suggest that more people will begin to drive once driverless cars become available. Since people will no longer need a driver's license to get behind the wheel, age restrictions for both young and old will no longer matter. More people will be on the road, and it will increase the amount of cars. Pollution levels may actually increase with driverless cars, even if they drive in a more fuel-efficient manner. As for the extra time the driverless cars are supposed to give us, well, that may be such a benefit after all. You see, most people nowadays find driving relaxing. They enjoy driving their car while listening to music or talk radio. It's a welcome distraction from the usual routine. Once people start to use driverless cars, it becomes another space to do work or watch videos, which is how most people already spend most of their day. I'm afraid that this extra time in driverless cars will just be another way to work or waste time. Now, answer the question. Summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they cast doubt on the specific points made in the reading passage. You have 20 minutes to write.
Okay, that was the lecture. So first, let's talk about it. What was the professor's opinion about these driverless cars?
There are
Negative
many
impact.
problems.
I'm sorry?
There are many problems behind these cars.
Okay, great. There are many problems behind. Perfect. So what is the first reason the professor gives? What does he think of this safety part?
Mm, these cars are designed by humans too.
Okay, which means?
Um, it was an accident. I heard that it was an accident that in the news with these cars.
Okay. I think even farther, it was the same car that the author mentioned, right? The author has an example here about this car. And the professor says, well, actually, that car had an accident, right? Or caused an accident. So we're going to say with the car mentioned by the author. Okay. So yes, that's true. Anything else here? Maybe this idea of they are designed by humans. So what else can we add?
They can have errors too.
Exactly. That is the main idea. So you see how it's the opposite? The article says they don't have errors. And the professor says, well, they're designed by humans, which means that they are also prone to error. Good. What about the second idea? What does the professor think of the environment?
He thinks that with these new cars, people will need a driver license, so it will increase the numbers of cars and it will increase the pollution.
Okay. Perfect. That's a good summary. Yes. So no driver's license, no restrictions means more cars, which at the same time means more pollution. Or pollution. Okay. And finally, what about time?
They will find another way to work maybe, or maybe they will waste their time.
Okay.
It's a relaxed activity for people too. Relaxing activity.
Okay. Great. That's true. So you guys are right, definitely. Anything else? Okay. So any questions then as for the article structure, what you have to do or what you have to do when you listen? Okay. Now, finally, let's move on to the writing part, what you actually have to do when you write. Now, I want to first start by saying that remember that this is not a creative essay, right? So don't worry if it is a little bit boring, if it isn't that interesting. If it isn't perfect as well, your goal here is to show that you can actually write in a coherent manner, that you can demonstrate that you know how to form sentences, that they make sense, that you're actually summarizing the points that were made, including relevant information, accurate information, that your grammar is, advanced. That is your goal, right? That you can actually write effectively within the time limit. Your goal is not to impress with a piece of, interesting extraordinary writing. This is not like that, just academic writing. So I guess that's the first thing I gotta say. The second is careful with the time limit. You only got 20 minutes, okay, which is not a lot. So you may be tempted to write a perfect introduction and waste a lot of time thinking about the perfect words to use and the perfect grammar and correcting it too much. But at the end of the day, they're not gonna care if you have the perfect introduction. If you don't actually have the most important information from the whole thing, you're not gonna get a good score. Okay, so your goal first is to write the whole essay, to summarize the 3 reasons and the opinion of both the article and lecture. Once you've done that, if you have extra time, which you will, I guarantee that you will have extra time if you practice enough. This is all about practicing. You need to practice so that you get used to it. And if you become an expert, then you will probably have 2 or 3, even 5 minutes to correct. So at the end, once you're done with everything, you can use that time to make it better and make changes and correct spelling and grammar and add ideas, whatever you want. But only at the end. The priority here is to write the essay. And one more thing, don't worry too much about the number of words you have. I'm pretty sure that you're probably going to ask me, how many words should I write? Now, the answer, according to the ETS, is ideally you would have about 250 to 300 words, ideally. This doesn't mean that this is a word requirement or a word limit. You can have more, you can have fewer. It doesn't matter, they will still check your essay. My advice, don't count the words, don't focus too much on that. Make sure that in order to have enough information, you should have about 4 paragraphs minimum, okay, at least 4 paragraphs with at least 4 or 5 lines each, okay? You may have more, you may have 6 lines. This means kind of 3, 4 sentences, okay? 4 or 5, let's say. At least 4 to 6, but 4 or 5. So this is the minimum requirement, okay? This is gonna make 250 or 300 words. The introduction can be shorter. If you write a conclusion, that can be shorter as well, but the body should be about 4 sentences each, okay? Any questions then before we start writing about what I just said? Okay, guys. So let's start. Your essay will have 4 paragraphs. This is a basic template. And I want you to know that it's not that complicated. Even though it looks like you have like these difficult words, it is exactly the same over and over again. In the introduction, the first paragraph that you'll have, you will need to have 2 basic things. These are the basic elements that you have to have. The first one is the author's opinion. Of course, you need to start by stating what you had in the article's intro, so the author's opinion. And second, you need to contrast that with the professor's opinion. If you have that, then you're good to go. That's enough. Now, if you want to do more, you can have 1 more sentence in the beginning. So this is going to be your optional first sentence, in which you're going to give some context. Okay, that means talk about the topic, give a little bit of background about what is going on. Okay, so these are the 3 sentences that you can have. The first one is optional, the 2 other ones are necessary. Okay, don't summarize the reasons. In the introduction, you can only use information that you have from the article's introduction and from the professor's introduction. You can never use anything from the body, okay? So don't mention anything about safety, about the environment, or about time. Is that clear so far? Any questions? Okay. So in the first sentence, if you want to give this context, which is optional, you can start by saying something like this. The article and lecture are both about or are both on. They both discuss, right? So you need to talk about the topic in general, or both the article and the lecture, and explain a little bit what you have there. So remember, I asked you, what is the topic? And you guys said autonomous cars. So that is right. We're going to use that. We're going to say the article and lecture are both about or on autonomous cars. Now, you need to, in order to give more context, you need to go to the article, the first paragraph, and you will see that they always give you a little bit of context. They tell you what it's going to be about, and they explain. You may have an explanation, an example, a definition, or something. Use that in your response. Right now, what do we have? We have a definition, right? They say this technology, or an explanation of how it works. Using sensors or computers, these cars can drive without input from a human. That is the explanation about how these cars work. So what you need to do is find a way to paraphrase that. You cannot copy and paste, use the exact same words in the exact same order, because that will lower your score in the vocabulary rubric. Okay, so what can we say? Any ideas on what to say here? How can we paraphrase this? Driverless cars are, or they work. What can we say? Maybe Leonardo or Carol?
They work without humans' intervention.
Okay, I really like that actually. Yes, good. So we can say they are both on autonomous cars, vehicles that work without human intervention. Okay. Great, that's it. That is going to be our first sentence. We're just explaining a little bit what the topic is, autonomous cars, and explaining a bit more, right? Because it's necessary. So these are vehicles that can work without humans intervening. Any questions about that first sentence, the context? Okay. Now the second sentence is going to be the author's opinion. So you always start with the author and you contrast it with the professor. So we're going to say something like this. The reading extract, which is the reading, the author claims, which means says. So the reading says, we go back, we look for the reading's opinion, for the author's opinion. These cars will have a positive impact, and we paraphrase it. So Leonardo, what would you write? How can you say this in other words?
Maybe the author mentioned that this innovation will have a positive impact in our driving experience.
Okay. This innovation will have?
Just like that. For me, it's okay. I don't know.
Okay, will have a positive, you said? A positive impact, right?
Reaction, maybe.
Okay, a positive reaction.
On people's driving experience or on people's lives.
Okay, a positive reaction from people.
Driving experience.
From driving? I'm sorry, I don't.
Experience.
From driving experience, okay. Okay. All right, it's okay. Maybe a positive reaction on our driving experience, right? Because from, okay. And that's it. Oh my God, I'm doing it in the wrong one. Okay, this is supposed to be what the reading says, right? So it should be here. The reading extract claims that this innovation will have a positive impact or a positive reaction on a driving experience. And we're gonna say, and provides 3 arguments of support. So we're not saying what the arguments actually are, we're just saying that the reading provides arguments of support. Okay? So that's it. Any questions about that part, about the reading's opinion, the author's opinion, sorry? You just need to paraphrase it, right? What you have. No questions then? Is it okay? Okay. And finally, we need to contrast that with what the professor said. So we're gonna say, however, which means nevertheless, but the professor argues that, so this is basically the professor on the other hand says, so what does the professor say? I think that in our notes, we have something like, there are many problems behind them, right? So we can have that. Maybe we can say, the professor argues that there are many problems behind these cars, objecting each of the author's arguments. So I'm pretty much paraphrasing the opinion that the professor had and adding this phrase, right? Objecting each of the author's arguments, which basically means the professor objects everything that the author says. So that is it. Any questions here about the introduction? Because that's your introduction, your 3 sentences that you need, that's it. Any questions? Okay. So I'm gonna copy and paste this somewhere else so that we can start with the body, okay? The good thing about the body of your essay is that it's exactly the same for each part. You don't even have to memorize it that much. You just need to remember that you need to contrast reading and professor. So you're gonna say something like, the reading says, however, the professor says, right? And this is basically what you'll do for the 3 body paragraphs. But of course, you're not gonna want to repeat so much and use basic vocabulary. So you will find other words. So instead of says, you can say the professor states, the professor claims, the professor mentions, believes, maintains. But everything else is exactly the same. So in the body, you need to have, in a body paragraph, you guys need to have, first thing, of course, the author's reason, and then the professor's reason. Now, you have to explain in each one, but my suggestion is focus a little bit more on the professor, okay? So maybe in the author, you can have 1 or 2 sentences, okay? 1 or 2 sentences, you don't really need more. At most 2, I'd say. And for the professor, you can have 2 or 3, okay? So always make kind of an emphasis on what the professor says. So let's see, we're gonna start. So we're gonna start by saying the article starts by stating that, so which basically means the reading says that, and here we will paraphrase the argument that we have from the reading, which is that they will be safer, right? Because of the accidents, because of the software. So what can we say there? Maybe Natalie, any ideas? What can we write?
The software is reliable. So
Okay.
um and mm, and it's not depend on humans choices.
Okay. The software is reliable and it doesn't depend on human choices. Okay. Anything else? Don't forget your keyword, right? Safety. You need to kind of include that. So how can we do that? What can we say? What else?
The um could you please show me the last yes. The article started by stating that the software is reliable. Consequently, it doesn't depend on human choices.
All right. Anything else?
As a result, um, yeah, could you please show me the last step?
Yes, sure.
As a result, they are safer and could drive um, over than yeah. Um, over 1 million kilometers.
Is
With
that okay?
no accident presented.
Okay, with no accidents. Okay, perfect. That's right. Awesome. So yes, the software is reliable. It doesn't depend on human choices. And as a result, they're safer and can drive over 1 million kilometers. Okay, good. So I will give you some tips next class on how to improve this, how to make it better. But it's okay so far. The content is good. So after you have the author's reasons, in this case, if you had an example, you can include it there, right? You can say to illustrate, the author mentions, you had an example about this car, one specific car, but since you're already kind of mentioning it implied in this sentence, then it's fine if we don't repeat that. So right off to the professor's opinion, we're gonna say, nevertheless, in the presentation or in the lecture, it is noted that. So what does the professor say about that? Now you can look at your notes. So it's designed by humans too, can have errors, accident, news. Can anyone do that part? Who wants to work on that? Maybe, I don't know. Anyone? Maybe Tanya.
Yes, teacher. Well, nevertheless, in the presentation is noted that the professors thinks that this kind of cars are made by humans, so these cars can have some errors. Also, the professor says that the last week, this kind of cars had the first accident, so nothing is sure about to drive this kind of cars.
Okay, had the first accident, so
Nothing can ensure that these cars couldn't have, no, that these cars cannot have, no, these cars will not have an accident.
okay, great. All right. So these kind of cars are made by humans. So these cars can have some errors. Also, the professor says that last week, these kind of cars have the first accident, so nothing can ensure that they won't have an accident. Good. Anything? Okay, that's fine. Let's leave it there. We'll make some changes after. Any questions about these, about how you contrast the author's reasons and the professor's reasons for the body? Questions?
Sure. The real exam, we need to do the exam with a pen. We can erase, we can make mistakes. Is there a problem?
Okay, good question. Actually, it will be, I mean, you have to take it on a computer, right? It could be yours, or if you take it in a test center, they will assign you a computer. So you will have to type your essay. Your screen will be something like this. On the left side, you'll have the article. So that's why I say, right, don't memorize it because it will be there. On the top, you'll have the question. And here you need to type your response. So you have to do it on a keyboard, on the computer's keyboard. Of course, you can make changes. You can, erase, go back, edit your response the way that you type on a computer. You won't have things like automatic spell check or things like that, of course, but you can edit it yourself. Okay, this is the response. Any other question so far? Okay, guys. So don't worry, we have half more class to work on this. So next class, we're not gonna continue writing the essay because remember that everything's the same, right? Why would we do that? You have furthermore, the author points out, and here you talk about the environment. You say the author points out that these cars will be good for the environment because they drive more efficiently and their engine works better and so on. However, on the other hand, the professor explains that more cars will be on the roads as no restrictions will be necessary, which means more pollution. So you're not gonna make anything different, okay? So what we're gonna do next class is gonna be really important, okay? Make sure that you join. we're gonna maybe have some ideas for a conclusion. The conclusion is totally optional, okay? You don't have to have a conclusion. I'll give you some choices in case you want to have one and you have time to have a conclusion. But most importantly, I will give you some tips on how to improve your writing, okay? That's gonna be really important. So we'll reread this and I'll give you some specific maybe suggestions on what things to focus on. Okay, so what words to use, what to do to improve your sentences and like sentence structure and everything else. And also some material, okay? Maybe I'll send you this today so that you have some reporting verbs, some transitions, words to use to refer to the reading and listening. I'll send you this today. And next class, we'll look at those tips, okay? We'll use 30 minutes to work on that. So any questions about what we've done today? Any other questions or final comments? No? Okay, guys, and that's gonna be it for today's class. We'll continue next one. Please don't forget to fill out the daily surveys. Today we need to complete 2. So I'm sending them. And we'll see. Okay. All right, give me a moment. Okay, please don't go yet. There's one more that we need to complete. I know, I'm sorry, but I'm waiting. Okay, now we're done. I'll send the other one, and then you can go. I'll be seeing you next Tuesday. Guys. Thank you so much. See you next class.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.